We are recording and live.
Okay, we'll start the meeting briefly. This will be a Newburyport Historical Commission meeting shortly. I have not formally called it to order yet. I'm going to give a minute or two for attendees and attorneys and whomever to get on the call, and we might get another panelist as well. So we'll just give it a couple of minutes. I see the attendees are starting to file in, so to speak. Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order in just another few moments. Well, thanks to my personal history in broadcast television, I have a thing about starting on time, and I've got 7:02, so we'll go ahead and start. So this is I'll call the meeting of the Newburyport Historical Commission for the 14th of September, 2023 to order. Please note and be aware that this meeting, like all the city virtual meetings, is being recorded. We will start with a roll call of the commissioners that are present. So no special order. Let's see, I see Andrew Bernhardt.
Here.
And okay, very good, thank you. And we can hear you well. Alan Markey has joined. That's our newest member. Can you,
Here.
is your audio
Yes, here.
Very good. We hear you, Alan. Very good. Excellent. How about Mr. Christopher Fay?
Here.
You're here. Excellent. Ed Neumer?
Here.
Thank you very much. Mark Cendrone?
Present.
Very good. Joe Morgan?
Here.
Okay. Let's see, I got Andrew. I think that's everybody that's waiting. Ed, Alan, Andrew, Biff. Did I get Biff? Faust? I think I skipped you, didn't I?
I'm here.
Okay, sorry, Biff.
Yep. That's right.
Okay, so I think that's everyone. Now let me just make a note here. So we have Andrew, Biff, Mark, Christopher, Joe, Ed. Chris Sautel is absent. Okay, and we do have now Ed Neumer and Alan Markey are our newest members, particularly Alan. This is his first formal meeting as alternate. So I'm not going to put you, I don't want to put you on the spot, Alan, but I'll give you the option if you just want to say a very brief word as to introduce yourself. That would be fine. But if not, we can do that next meeting, because I'm sure, I don't know if you come to the meeting expecting to do that.
No, that's quite all right. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to be part of the commission, and I appreciate the opportunity. Honestly, I've been in commercial construction for almost 4 decades. Always interested in older homes, and my wife and I moved to Newburyport 3 years ago. So we're, it's great to be around all the historical homes, and also to feel like it's important as the town grows that we keep the charm, we keep the town intact. So I'm very excited to be a part of the group, and also interested to hear how it all moves forward and everyone's opinions as each topic comes up.
Okay.
So thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Alan. Very good. Okay, so we'll get the ball rolling. I do see in the attendee list we have Attorney Mead and a couple of other folks, so we can get started. We probably will have a public comment period tonight, but I will go over the procedure for that when the time comes. So we have 2 demolition delay applications tonight. I'm going to do a very quick review, mostly for the new folks. And by the way I understand the ordinance, Ed, we only have one regular commissioner absent. So as an alternate, the first alternate, which is Ed Neumer, he will be able to vote tonight. You can participate in the deliberations, but I think we're limited to have just the 7 votes. And with such good attendance tonight, that means you can't vote tonight, but I'm sure you'll have ample opportunities to do that in the future. So a quick review on these demolition delays, because the ordinance is a bit awkward in the way the decisions work. So it's a 2-phase process. First, the commission has to decide if the structure in question is historically significant, and whether it's historically significant and considered for preservation or not considered for preservation. Now, if and only if we determine that the structure is both historically significant and considered for preservation, then there's a public hearing, and tonight's meeting has been appropriately noticed and so forth, for butters and so on and so forth, to have a public hearing. And then we have, and during tonight, and the applicant goes through their demolition plan and their proposed demolition and rebuild plans. And then that vote is followed by the second phase, which is, it's called, there's a motion that the structure is, quote, preferably preserved. That means they aren't allowed to do anything, right? That's a yes or no vote. And that imposes a 1-year demolition delay. However, if the commission feels that the amount of demolition or the whatever is going on with the demolition and rebuild is acceptable, or perhaps acceptable with some minor modifications, we can have yet another vote to approve the plans tonight, and in which case they can, and if that passes, they can proceed with their plans. Or sometimes the applicant comes back at some future meeting with a modified plan or whatever, and for that vote. Okay, so I know it's a little bit convoluted. I hope that makes it relatively clear. So I see Attorney Mead, and your audio was enabled on our end, Ms. Mead. So if you want to cover the first part, discussion of the historical nature or lack of it of this particular structure, and you can take the floor now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. And it is actually great to see a full commission plus their alternates. I think it's been a number of years since that has happened. The chair would agree with that. And so it is great to be here and see all the members, or figuratively see all the members, I guess. So I am Lisa Mead of Mead, Tellerman Costa at 30 Green Street in Newburyport, and I'm here on behalf of my clients, Julie and Jack Padden, who own 14 Payson Street and live there with their family. And the architect on this project is MPG Architects from here in Newburyport. If you can go to the next slide, please, Caitlin. So the property was constructed in around 1891, according to the assessor's records, and 1890, according to the district data sheets. There is no Form B for this property. It is listed as contributory on the district data sheets, where it is described as having a Queen Anne style architecture. We examined the title and the records at the Essex County Registry of Deeds back to 1875, when the property, not the structure, but the property is first shown on a plan in 1889. We're going to show you that in a minute. There were no buildings shown on this plan, but this was a part of a subdivision that was laid out and created for Edward Payson Shaw, who purchased a large tract of land and was formerly part of what was called the Woodland Estates in 1875. So for all of those of you who know this area, this of course is Payson Street, and it is off of Woodland Street, and this is that layout of that whole neighborhood over there. The first deed of the property, which references with buildings thereon, is dated January 28th, 1918. So not quite as old as what is reflected in the district data sheets or the assessor's records, but it's highly probable that a house was built and then somebody lived there before they conveyed it out to the next individual, at which time they indicated that there was a building on the property. In 1914, the Sanborn maps actually show the structure on the property, confirming that it was in fact constructed sometime prior to 1914. I will point out to you that while the 1914 Sanborn map does appear to show a side porch, which is what we're proposing to modify here, the 1924 assessor's map does not, which indicates that perhaps the side porch was removed or did not have a roof on it at the time. As a result, we don't actually know if the roof on the side porch is 75 years old or not, but we are here because it is appropriate to do so, given us not being able to actually prove that it's not 75 years old. I will add, before I go through the slides, that the structure's undergone a number of changes more recently, including a 2-story addition in 1983, a shed roof over the existing deck in 1996, remodeling in 1997, a single-story addition in 2001, and a 2-story addition in 2010. This, of course, is not surprising for any home that's been used and transferred on a number of occasions in the city of Newburyport. And then finally, there is a detached garage in the rear of the property. We do not propose any changes to, and we are going to go through the slides now. So if you could go to the next slide, please, Caitlin. So here's the subdivision map of the area, and we always like to put any kind of historical maps that we see, but you'll see the red circle in the middle. That's the property at 14 Payson Street. And you can see this was a layout of an area that we subdivided, that was subdivided, apparently for Mr. Woodland, or Mr. Payson, excuse me. Next slide, please. So here's the 1914 Sanborn map. Again, down towards the middle on the right-hand side, you can see the property, and you see, if you could blow that up a little bit, Caitlin, I'll be able to show the commission members the side porch. So you can see the side porch a little bit there, right there, that Caitlin is circling. And so this is the 1914 map. For those of you who don't know, Sanborn maps are available starting in the late 1880s, moving forward. Depends on which ones they are, usually every 6 to 10 years until the 1914 map. This area of the city does not appear on the Sanborn maps until this time. Next slide, please. This is the 1924 assessor's map. Oftentimes, they reflect what the Sanborn maps had and are drawn to show what existed on the property, because this is what the assessors use to do their assessments. Next, if you can blow up the property itself is on the bottom of this map in the red circle. Maybe you can blow that up. You can see that there is no porch shown on the 1924 assessor's plan. Next slide, please. So here's a photo going down Payson from, I believe, Chapels to our back. And you can see our proposal. You can see the side porch that has the roof there. Our proposal is to actually remove that side porch and construct a slightly larger side porch that is also 2 stories. We'll go through that in the next segment if we get there. Next slide, please.
Before you, can you go back? All right, never mind. You could, all right, either one was fine. Just to clarify, when you're referring to this side porch, I assume you're referring to the 1-story with the three gang window there,
Yes,
very close to the front.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just presume, yes. So
okay.
It's that side. It's the
right. Okay.
I call it the side porch because that is what it was. It seems like, and yes, that's what we're referring to.
Okay.
Next slide, please, Caitlin. And this is just a front view of the property. And again, you see that's the door, the entry door. That's what's being proposed to be modified. Next slide, please. Here's the opposite side of the house. And next slide, please. And that's just a little bit further away. there's an eclectic mix of structures in on Payson Street. There's everything from this structure, which is a Queen Anne style. There's one other that's similar to it. And then there's capes, extended capes. It's cottages. It's a mixture of various different kinds of structures. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it over to the commission to make their determination about whether or not the structure is historically significant and considered for preservation.
Thank you, Attorney Mead. Does anyone on the panel have a question for Ms. Mead? Ed, I see you unmuted yourself. Did you have a question?
No,
or
I
a
just
comment?
unmuted myself in case you asked. No,
Okay.
I have nothing. I have no question.
Okay. Given the age, the documentation, the characteristics, the condition and all that, I think unless someone has a comment to the contrary, a motion that the structure is historically significant and should be considered for preservation would be in order if someone would care to be so kind as to
I'll
suggest
make
that
that motion, Mark Sendron.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Syndrome. I'll make a note of
Seconded
that.
by Joe.
Okay, is that Joe Morgan seconding it, right?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, so the motion on the floor is that the structure is historically significant and considered for preservation. A yes vote would mean would affirm that, and we would proceed to a demo plan review. A no vote would mean that you feel it is not historically significant or should not be considered for preservation.
I'm
So
sorry, Glenn, is that,
Yes.
excuse me, Chair, I thought we're having two votes. First, if it's historically significant, and then a second vote is for preservation.
Yeah, well, yeah, I totally understand your confusion. Sometimes we do, kind of depending on the situation. In this case, it just seemed from all the factors involved that we could combine, we can have combine them into one vote.
Okay.
If okay, I mean, do you understand what we're doing then?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So Andrews, you might as well stay on the floor because alphabetically you're the first one. Mr.
All right.
Bernhardt, what is your vote on that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Biff Baus?
Yes.
Thank you. Mark Syndrome?
Yes.
Thank you. Chris Fay?
Yes. Excuse me. Yes.
All right. Joe Morgan?
Yes.
Okay. Ed Neumer?
Yes.
Okay, and the chair is in assent as well. Okay, so it has been deemed historically significant and considered for preservation. So the next step is to go through the demolition plan review, which often is kind of a combination of demo plan and rebuild plan, where we review the whole thing. So I'll turn the floor back over to Attorney Mead. Is it just you, Ms. Mead, or do you have any architect or anyone else speaking, or what?
Oh, you're stuck with me, Mr. Chair. The architect was unable to make it this evening.
Okay, that's fine. Right ahead.
Thank you very much. So the patents propose, as I suggested earlier, to remove the left side porch and construct a two-story addition, which is a little bit larger in footprint, and it's 1 story larger in height on the left side of the house. It will become flush with the rear addition in the back and with the front corner. And it will be differentiated, as I'll show you in a moment, by the kind of siding that will be used on the addition. There's also a proposal to remove the existing second floor bay window and replace it with standard windows. This house we'll see in the before and after elevation shortly that it currently has 8/8 windows, which actually is not appropriate for the style. And the proposal is to go to 6/1 windows. And so that would be the proposal, to put a small bank of 6/1 windows in the place of where the bay window is currently in the front. And then there is a proposal to put a small, very small, and you'll see that in a minute too, second floor deck in the rear of the property. as I said earlier, the addition will have window clapboards that are 7 inches apart, where the main portion has 4-inch clapboards in order to distinguish it from the rest. And in order to provide that same kind of continuity, the siding on the rear later added additions will also have the 7-inch cedar clappers as opposed to the 4-inch, and we'll show you that in plan in a minute as well. And so if you can go to the next slide, please. So here we have a site plan just to orient you around the property. If you might just blow that up a little bit, Caitlin. Thank you so much. So as you say, you sit on the at the front of the house on the left side, you see the current enclosed entry, and the proposal is to make it a little bit bigger and add a story to it. Just for all of you who want to know how big that is, that adds 85 square feet to the structure. That's it. And then you can see the deck that gets tucked in on the second floor in the back. And those are the 2 additions. You can't see the removal of the bay window on this plan, obviously, because it's a flat plan. We'll show you that in elevation in a minute.
Quick question, Attorney Mead. Does that 85 square feet include the second floor footage?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's small.
Yep.
Next slide, please. So here's the existing front elevation. And if you can go to the next slide, please. And here's the proposed elevation. And just so you know, these 2 elevations are in different scales. And so that's why this kind of popped up at you. This is in a larger scale. That was to be able to show you the details. So here's the proposed addition. You can see that it is differentiated old from new by using the different reveal on the siding. You see that the bay window is removed and replaced with the double bank of windows, and everything else stays intact. Next slide, please.
People might also have been surprised in that garage popped up on I don't think that was in the other.
No,
in the
it wasn't.
existing-
It wasn't.
Right.
But
There's
we're
no
not doing-
changes
No.
proposed to that, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
So here's the left side elevation. And again, you can see the little porch or entry in the front there on the right-hand side of this drawing. And you do see the bay window as well. Next slide, please. And here we have the proposed elevation, which shows the new addition, kind of filling in that hole there, and then the removal of the bay window. Next slide, please. So here's the opposite, the right side elevation, and basically nothing's happening to this elevation. Next slide, please. There you go. You do see, I apologize, there is the deck that's being added, and there's some window changes on the additions in the rear. And then you can see the siding for that rear added addition, which will be reminiscent of what we're doing up front in order to differentiate that new rear addition that was added a few years ago. Next slide, please. So here's the back of the structure. You can see that rear addition that was added a couple of years ago. And then if you put the new slide up, and here's the proposed change to that along with the deck. But again, that's the newer addition in the back with the deck being attached to it. Next slide, please.
What was the approximate year of that rear addition? Do you know? Sorry to throw you back.
There's a 2010 building permit that was for a 2-story addition, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So you think that seems that was probably it?
Yes, I believe so.
And thank you.
You're welcome. So hang on a second, I may be wrong and I'm being corrected perhaps by my client. So I just want to look at my text. Oh, I apologize. The 2010 was the addition on the bay side. The second floor addition in the back was much before that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Julie. So it's hard, Mr. Chair, you all need to get back in person here. This is the rear again. Next slide, please. And then, so we just wanted to show you some neighborhood context. So here's a 12 Payson Street. This is the house beside. You can see the structure that we're talking about at 14 in the background there. Next slide, please.
Interesting that 12 Payson is reminiscent of the other property you're representing tonight.
I know, I was thinking that same thing in a totally different location.
Yes.
Mine, however, is not quite as a good shape as that one. That's 17 Payson, Mr. Chair. So this is entirely different location, right? Next slide, please. Here's 6 and 8 Payson. As I said earlier, very different homes on this street.
Yeah.
It's an eclectic neighborhood of architectural style for sure.
Yeah.
So with that, Mr. Chair, we request that the board approve the plans as proposed. So we can be off to the Zoning Board of Appeals for our special permit and undertake these renovations.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mead. So we will take public comment in just a minute. First, let me ask if any of my fellow panelists here have a question.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I forgot one thing. I apologize. We did provide the commission with 10 letters.
The letters,
of support, and we received one today from 4 Beacon Street, which is a neighbor as well, and that's pretty much covers the neighborhood. So I just wanted you to know that.
Yes, we did. That did not escape our attention. There was quite a plethora of people signed off on approving of your plans. Apparently, when they, just out of curiosity, do you show them what? I assume you show them what their projected plans are and everything, right?
Yes. Yep. The owners take them around, but yes, the owners take the plans around with them and ensure they did in this instance.
Okay. While you guys are thinking about it, I do have one quick question. I'm not sure which elevation would be the best one to show it. Maybe we don't even need one. Caitlin, if you could go back to one of the ones that shows that left side, I think it was maybe 15. Let's try that one. Okay, this is existing, but this will do fine. You see, Attorney Mead, there's the high, gabled roof, which is like, the part of the main part of the structure. Then there's that part that bumps out that's kind of towards us as we're looking at this elevation. What I want to get to is when I understand how the footprint is going to now match, so that wall that's closest to us, if it were real, will be in line with the rest of that side. And I assume the same is true with the second floor. So will that roof line therefore be like one, how do I say this?
Will it be flat, like one thing? Yeah. So if we could go to the next slide, which I believe is the proposed elevation, I believe that you can see that that's exactly what's being proposed here.
Okay, well, yeah, forgive me, it's just with the various lines and things, and it was a little hard to tell, but I do see that the eave line looks like it just goes right straight across. So, all right, so yeah, it won't be a mad jumble of pitches and all that. It'll just be brought over. Okay, that was my main question.
Yep.
Does anyone else on the board have a question before we turn it over to a public comment?
Was there mention of the siding, and does the siding all stay consistent? I heard some mention about the siding.
Yes.
Yep.
Go ahead, Attorney Mead, why don't you answer that?
So the siding is all going to be the cedar clapboard siding to match the existing clapboard siding, which is 4-inch reveal. And then the proposed addition is going to be the 7-inch reveal. So it's differentiated. And then that is going to occur on the back side of the 2-story addition as well.
I wonder if it's going to seem a bit odd to have within that same wall, the one we're looking at right now, have 2 different reveals of clapboard like that, I don't know, it might look a bit odd, don't you think? Well,
Well, I think it looks just fine, Mr. Chair.
okay. All right, well, we won't belabor that right now, but we'll have a deliberation among the panel after public comment. So on that note, here's the deal. If you want to make a public comment, you have to identify yourself by using the Zoom control to raise your hand in the application, whether you're on a computer or laptop or iPad or whatever. And we'll look out for raised hands. And when if we see you and call your name, we'll unmute you on our end. You will need to unmute yourself on your device. Pardon me. If you and remember to please to lower your hand after you've been recognized and everything and spoken. Like any public hearing, identify yourself with your name and address per usual. And if you happen to be using a telephone, you can use *9 to raise or lower your hand and *6 to mute or unmute. They kind of toggle back and forth. So we'll open the public hearing period and allow a minute or so to see if there are any hands go up. And if not, we'll can carry on. I got to get more comfortable headphones. Well, there's a regular stampede that's not happening to make public comment. Looks like we have no one burning to make a public comment. So I think I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment period. I think if someone wanted to comment, they would have raised their hand by now. Okay, so public comment period is now closed. I'll make a note that there was none. And can have deliberation among ourselves here as to whether people on the commission are looking favorably toward these changes or not. While you all are thinking about it, I do have one quick comment, and I know we can. You said the owner, was it Julie, is there in the attendees. So I don't know if she's wants to answer this question or not, but I really would love to know why it was deemed necessary to remove the second story bay on the front facade.
So I can answer that.
Okay.
We've certainly talked about it, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
The issue is that they wanted that front to be more in line with the I don't know if I want to say symmetry of the rest of the house and not have it take away from the lower bay. And they are not happy with the way it connects. And so they believe that the two windows proposed, if you can go to the front elevation, there we go, is more appropriate and has a more put together, I'm thinking, I'm losing my words here, feel with the two windows as opposed to the bay window on top.
Okay. And I see a couple of hands up among my fellow commissioners here. Just sort of a random. Joe, did you have a comment or question or anything?
Yes. So let me just make an observation. There seems to be a lot of work occurring on the most visible elevation of this historical building. There's a lot of work going on that doesn't necessarily have to do with the actual floor area expansion, which is very minimal. So it's something is happening inside that second floor front room. Something special is happening there. I guess we can figure that out, that they don't want the historical bay with the canopy, and they don't seem to be too concerned about the clash of siding materials that are going to get flushed out across the front and along the side. I mean, if I were to give an architectural critique of this, I would say this is a really bad design, but I'm not. I'm giving a preservationist critique. So what I would say is that the destruction of the most valuable part of the character defining features of this building, the front of the house, is totally unacceptable. I mean, it looks like they're going to replace the scallop shingles, which is a big feature for uh, for um, Queen Anne. And the scallops, the square scallops, the round scallops, and I guess the sawtooth. I mean, there's a really large variety, and they look like they're in pretty good shape. So I don't know why they would be removed. It's gratuitous destruction of a historical facade. So I can't support this project in any way whatsoever. I mean, I think that would be the destruction of historical property to go about methodically removing the things that make it of historical interest.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Joe. And I don't mind saying I had similar thoughts, but I wanted to first hear what everyone else had to say. Okay, and your hand is still up. Oh, there it goes. Mr. Baus.
Yeah, I think a couple of the items Joe already mentioned. So yeah, I as I looked at it and just saw that, oh, it's a relatively small addition, but then I started to notice the siding, that lovely siding on there. And then as I look farther, the removal of that bay window, it really doesn't make any sense to remove that feature. And then I also start seeing like the window replacement, both that front and back center top window has a nice arch on it. It's very characteristic of the style. If you look literally right across the street from this house is a mirror image version of this house with all the same details, and they're in about the same state of repair, which is very good, it looks to me. I mean, I was basically shocked when I started looking at this, that this would even be proposed to us. There's no way I would be able to move forward with this.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Biff. And your hand is still up. Anyone else like to comment? You can weigh in, and you can, even if it's just to say that you agree or disagree. Up to I actually had gotten. I probably should do what I started doing a while back, and that's go sort of around the board. Okay, I do see Ed Neumer's hand go up. So Ed, would you like to have a
I have
comment?
no additional comments to Joe and Biff, but to say that I agree with them.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Okay, how about Christopher Fay? Any thoughts or comments?
No, I don't think I have anything additional. So I think just maybe one small thing, which is the neighborhood definitely sorry, get my hand out of the way. The neighborhood is definitely a mishmash of different designs, but and in different eras probably. But that to me reinforces the fact that you probably don't want to change this house because it does stand out. A lot of the other houses, including the one that was shown next door, doesn't really stand out, but this one does. So that's all I would add, I think.
Okay, that's fine. Just taking notes here. Okay. Andrew, any thoughts, even if it's
I agree with all the statements.
Okay. Okay, thank you. See who Mark Sandrone, I haven't heard from you. Any comments?
I wholeheartedly agree with what Joe Morgan said.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Mark. Did I get everyone to see it? Alan, Marquis, even if you're not voting, you can still weigh in if you have an opinion on this. It's up to you if you'd like to.
I agree. I agree with Joe.
Yep.
I think it's
Okay.
significant. So.
Yeah. Okay. And okay. Well, I'll share my thoughts very briefly. Just that, and it's largely in agreement. And I'm glad. I think it was Biff mentioned the those arched windows. Yes, I had also noticed those, but I forgot to mention it earlier. Yeah, I think was Joe. One of you two said it best and said there seems to be removal of historical features with that don't seem to, but it certainly, whatever the justification is, it's not clear to us. I know you're looking at the photographs. There's a photograph that shows the structure from kind of the uphill side. It's probably no, not 7, try 8. Yeah. Okay, so you see that although they have different roof styles, one has a kind of a shed roof extension of the normal, pitched roof over the second story bay window on the right hand side. That's but I don't think it's a stretch to say that those two second story bays, they're kind of unusual. It's more common to have them on one story, but certainly not uncommon to have them go up 2 stories. And it's kind of an interesting touch to have them, not a lot of the more simple structures, they're in line. They don't, like in this case, the second story is a bit smaller than the first story and so on. Can't quite see. I see that they're 8/8. It's not quite clear in this photo if they are that sort of tall, narrow, kind of late Victorian, late 19th century, mutton patterns, or if there's something else. I didn't get a chance to get out and look at the property close up. But yeah, like so I totally agree that there doesn't seem to be a reason for doing that. And as Joe correctly said, it's not a question of our opinion as to taste or, whatever, but it's the idea of preservation of defining historical characteristics and or features. And I think it'd be very hard to argue that those were not important defining historical features. So yeah, as it stands, I think it sounds like we're pretty much all in agreement. So would
Mr. Chair,
anyone, yeah,
can
do
I
you
ask
want to respond, Attorney?
Yeah, I'd like to flesh out a few things. I think there's a lot that I've just heard, and I'm gonna obviously need to speak with my client and the architects, but so the addition is very important to the applicant and to the use of the house. Taking into consideration a number of the things you said, I didn't hear anybody talk about the addition itself. And I want to be sure that there is not any major objection to the addition. I'm not talking about the siding. I'm talking about the concept of the addition as proposed. Heard all the clear comments relative to the details, but I want to flesh out the comments related to the addition itself.
Right. Okay, I see a couple of hands went up. Joe and Biff, why don't you go first this time, Biff? You want to respond to that?
Yeah, sure. I think the size of the addition, I don't think is a problem, at least not to me. I do think that pushing out that porch so that it's flush with the already extended wall and moving that all up so that it's all kind of the same structure extended out almost to the facade. I don't think that's really the right idea. I feel like if you were going to add that in and to make it look like it's obviously a modern new addition to it, that it shouldn't go flush with all those sides. But then you do get into that problem where you're, dealing with a lot of roof angles and stuff. But I think the part of the character too of this style is as you come down the sides of the walls, with the siding tiles, there's kind of an angle out at the each story, like the head of the first story kind of angles out a little bit, and all the details of that seem to be removed from that addition, and so that I think that's a little bit problematic, and just this doesn't seem like something that would be easily removed from the structure, which is another kind of principle we should be looking at.
Yeah, Yeah, thank you, Biff. Good points. How about you, Joe? Did you want to say something?
Yeah, thanks. I don't really see an opportunity for that addition. I think it would. I don't see any way of doing it without it compromising the uniqueness of that front facade. And whatever the programmatic drive is for that second floor space, I would encourage the owner to look for that elsewhere, maybe toward the back of the house. But I mean, I think that I just don't see how you can marry that the the um, the extension upward of the I think we're calling it a porch shed
Yeah,
or something like that.
porch.
I don't see how that can really marry to the front facade. The front facade is so highly asymmetric, and maybe that's the reason why they were trying to destroy a lot of the architectural detail to take focus away from it. But I don't think that's an adequate justification, the destruction of the historical detail in order to remove some of the difficulty of the design problem here. So
Yeah.
I don't see how it can be resolved, frankly.
Okay. Yeah, and my own thought was that, in trying to answer your question, Attorney Mead, is that for my personally, first of all, I think I agree totally with Biff about aligning everything, especially in the front. But I could see avoiding a crazy roof line by having the buildup be flush on the left-hand side of the house and to the roof, be merged, but not flush in the front, set back, even if it's just 6 inches, so that the original kind of profile of that street facing facade remains discernible, so to speak. I don't know if you guys would, who've just commented, Biff and Joe would agree or disagree with that, but that's just, it seemed to me. Also had a question, and looking at this photo, Caitlin, could you enlarge it slightly? Because I honestly hadn't noticed, and I think Biff brought it out, that there's a flaring. Yeah. So am I seeing things, or does the side wall have that flare out that was often done in those days?
Maybe you can go to the head-on picture, Caitlin.
Yeah, maybe that would show it better. Thanks. Oh, it doesn't
That's
really
hard.
show it because the roof of the porch kind of hides it.
Right.
You can kind of see it. You can kind of see it there in front of the porch. It flares out
Front of the
right in there. Yeah.
Oh, there. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
If you
And
go,
it continues around the whole house or most of the house like that.
Right.
right, I think, Caitlin, can you go to the proposed elevation of the left side, perhaps? So I think that the applicant's architect carries that out. I don't know if you can blow that up. I believe that they respected that. You can see some different work going on there. So I believe that that was respected, but nonetheless, I hear what you're saying. I don't think that it was removed. I think that that's something that they understand. So, but I hear what you're saying, and I do want to give credit to that. I mean, I do think it's there. I don't think that that went away.
Okay.
But I hear what you're saying.
Yep. All right. Well, I hope that is helpful. We should go ahead and take a vote. It's actually probably your client's benefit to take a vote now, even if it's determined that it is preferably preserved, because then
Yes.
when your clock starts, and but you can still come back with revised plans at any time
Yes.
to cut that short. So I think at this point, a motion, the motion would be, they're always phrased in the affirmative, so that the structure, motion I'd like to hear is that the structure is preferably preserved, which would a yes vote would impose the 1-year demolition delay. A no vote would not. So would someone care to make that motion?
Mark Sandon, I'll make that motion.
Thank you again, Mark. And is there a second for that?
I'll second it.
I didn't pick up whose voice that was.
That was it.
Ed Number. Okay, thank you, Ed. Okay, so a yes vote on this motion means that hang on a second, I gotta get my notes straight here. So yes vote means that it is preferably preserved, and we do not want to see the changes made that have been proposed. A no vote means that it would be okay to proceed. So again, the same alphabetical order. Andrew Bernhardt.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Biff Baus.
Yes.
Thank you. Mark Syndrome.
Yes.
Thank you. Christopher Fay.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Joe Morgan.
Yes.
Thank you. Ed Neumer.
Yes.
Okay, and the chair is in the same camp. So I suspect, Attorney Mead, that it's probably not necessary to take a vote on whether to accept the plans as presented, because I think we all realize that I don't think that would go anywhere. But you can certainly come back, like I said, anytime. It's not like it's got to be, motions to continue and all that. You're welcome to return with modified plans based on the feedback you've gotten tonight.
We will do so. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your time and effort on this as usual. Well, don't go anywhere, Attorney Mead, because you're up next again with the property on Plum Island. That's 217 Northern Boulevard. This is another demolition delay hearing. So same routine as what we just did. So I'm sure you know the drill, Attorney Mead. You want to go ahead and tell us about this structure?
Thank you. If you go to the next slide. For the record, Lisa Mead, Tellerman, Costa 30 Green Street, on behalf of the property owners, Luke and Catherine Shipman. The architect on this project is Eileen Graff. She too is not able to be here this evening. So this house was constructed about 1900, according to the assessor's records. There is no Form B for the property, nor is it included in the district data sheets. As it's on Plum Island, nothing on Plum Island is in the district data sheets. A lot appears in the lot itself, appears in the 1920 division of lots on Plum Island plan by the Plum Island Beach Company. It indicates at that time there was something on the property, but I'm pretty sure it's probably not this house. It doesn't show it in great detail. And I'll show you that plan in a minute. Similar to many other properties on Plum Island, however, this structure has undergone various changes in different stages of the years. Mr. Chair, I was informed by my client via text during the last hearing that the ends on this house are false. So while it looks like some of the houses we just saw on Payson Street, this is a fake. So to that end, anyway, the main two-story portion of the structure appears to have somewhat of a Dutch colonial style, according to the architect. There's also an existing small rear one-story portion that is not very in keeping with the rest of the house. A front porch and second-story deck were added in 2009. And there's a prior owner who repaired an existing porch and replaced windows and sliders and constructed a deck on the roof. That's an earlier plan as well. There are also two outbuildings on the property, which are more modern and not being a part of this application. So if you go to the next slide, please.
Pardon the interruption, Attorney Mead.
Sure.
You confused me with the comment you were talking about the fake gables or whatever. Are you talking about this property or the prior one?
This one.
Oh, okay. So what maybe when we get to the photos or something, maybe perhaps you can clarify it, because I'm confused as to what you meant by that.
Yeah. So Luke says that the gable ends are false gables. So in any event, here's the Plum Island This is one of the Plum Island maps. There are many, and you can see the yellow in the middle of this. That's where this property is. And if you blow that up, Caitlin, there's a teeny little structure on it. Pretty sure that's not this house. Next slide, please.
I think they had a template with, because all the structures appear to be that same teeny tiny size.
Yeah. Next slide. So here's the structure on the right-hand side. You can see it.
Oh, I
And-
think, I'm sorry to interrupt. So I'm guessing by the fake gables, meaning that the house is actually, it has those strips running down to
Correct.
look kind of that sort of Dutch colonial style look, but they're just kind of tacked on the outside.
Correct. That's
Okay.
exactly right.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome. So here, this is the corner of Northern Boulevard and 76th Street. Right here. Next slide, please. This is the rear, excuse me, this is the front view from Northern Boulevard. I will tell you that just for orientation, the proposed addition goes on that right-hand small addition that you see on the right-hand side. Next slide, please. And here you go. Here's another view from Northern Boulevard. Next slide, please. And this is the left side of the house. Next slide, please.
Are these recent photos?
Yeah, yes. The right side. This is the back of the house. Next slide, please. And that is down 76th Street. So with that, Mr. Chair, we believe you can actually take a historic significance vote that is a negative here.
Well, we'll see. I'll see if the board agrees with you. Any questions for Attorney Mead before we have a motion? And I think probably what we can do for clarity, and Andrew, I'm sure you'll be happy to hear this. We'll separate into two votes. We'll first decide if it's historically significant or not, and then if it is, we can decide if it's perfectly preserved or not. Hopefully that people understand what I'm talking about there. So any comments from anyone or questions for the attorney? If there are none, if someone would like to make a motion that the structure is historically significant, we can take a vote on that.
I'll make a motion that the structure is historically significant.
Okay. Stand by.
I'll second that. It's Ed.
Okay. So that was Biff, right? Biff and Ed.
Yes.
Thank you both. So in this case, a yes vote means that it's historically significant, and we can then decide if it's if it's considered for preservation or not. If it is considered for preservation, we would review the demo plans, etc. If that vote is negative, then but anyway, that's the second phase. So right now we're just deciding on the historical significance of the structure. So Mr. Bernhardt, your vote.
Yes.
Okay. Biff Baus.
No.
Okay. Mark Syndrome.
No.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Christopher Fay.
No.
Okay. Mr. Joe Morgan.
No.
Okay. Ed Neumer.
No.
Well, it appears that we have one yes so far and a bunch of no's. I don't know, those lovely Italianate brackets on the door there are very tempting, but I guess I'll have to join the majority here and not deeming it a historically significant structure for a number of reasons. So what that means well, I'm sure you would know what it means, Attorney Mead, that that's the only vote we need, because if it's not historically significant, then there's no need to determine whether it's considered for preservation or have a demo plan review or any of that. Any comments before we dismiss this particular application?
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Okay, well then that one is done. So in the general business, we can maybe wrap this up reasonably quickly. There's 3 items here that I've got. There's the Frog Pond revision, revised letter of support. There's communication about, let me take them slightly out of order. Let me take first the letter from Mass Historical Commission on the antennae installation at 30 Pleasant Street. That's the Unitarian Church on Pleasant Street. It does have a preservation restriction. Right before the meeting started, I asked Caitlin about this, and she's been in contact with the people at the church. And as of today, there is no plan in place to proceed with this particular project. It's kind of on hold, so there isn't anything we need to do at this point. The letter from Mass Historic, if you read it, basically says it's okay with them on the condition that the local historical commission, that's us, approves of the plans. So, but we haven't done that. We haven't even seen the plans yet, and we probably are not going to see them until they, do something to start moving the project forward. And the church, the church administration is aware that the plans will need to be reviewed and approved by this board when that time comes. So that's about all I need to say about that. Now on the Frog Pond revised letter, Joe, I know you had some brief comments you wanted to make, and I will certainly allow you to do that. There's been also some very late breaking documentation and so forth from Kim Turner, who's the project manager. But why don't I let you explain, why you wanted to update our letter of support and what the rationale was, so that everyone knows what this is all about.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I know that some additional documents came through, and I think Kim Turner or others may have suggested that there be a continuance, and that's perfectly fine, in order to digest the documentation. The actual, however, the actual issue, I think, is fairly straightforward, and I think I can quickly step through it and remind people, because I think a lot of it is just a timeline. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I do want to assure everyone that the letter that I just wrote, which what I'm calling a revised letter of support dated the 8th of September, is really not adding any new material relative to the March 30 letter of support, March 30, 2022, to the CPC. All I'm doing is I'm clarifying for the record that the Historical Commission did not approve a couple of the scope change, or 2 scope change items, actually 3, and that I'm highlighting those items and for the record, so that the Historical Commission has a clear document in the file saying that we object. We're raising our hands and we are objecting. So what I would like eventually to get to is where we take a vote on that with revisions to that letter, whatever we need. But I think it would be helpful to follow through, and I'll tell you why. The original letter from March 30, 2022, a lot of time passed before we saw any additional information about the project, and that came, it appears, on June 22nd. The NHC meeting of June 22nd is where the applicant came to us for variance. They wanted they were seeking a variance for a pump house. Okay, a freestanding pump house on the beach of the pond. We reviewed that. We came back on July 13th. We reviewed the material and we approved an advisory opinion which said that a freestanding structure, any additional structure in the kettle pond in the mound was not going to be historically acceptable. It was an intrusion. We did qualify that, saying that if there was decided by others, in this case, the planning board, to allow the pump house, that we would be able to review the design for that. So all that's well and good. The planning board met on the 19th of July, the 2nd of August, and something happened, I'm not sure what. August 1st, the bid documents were issued. And in perusing those, actually I spent a good bit of time on those, I found that the so-called pump house, which was originally called the utility shed, but now called the pump house because I guess of an upgrade of materials and what have you. It was a delegated design, so there was no design for the pump house in the bid documents. It was delegated to whoever would become the successful awarded contractor for the contractor to design with city input. There was also something called seat height granite blocks that were going to be 18-inch high blocks above their surrounding beach, which were substantially larger than any image that I had of them. They had always been spoken of as curbs or edges. So this was new to me. So I found it somewhat alarming. I thought that these things could be very destructive of the frog pond and the surrounding landscape, which I thought we had agreed was a extremely historic landscape, a very valuable asset to the city. And I thought that maybe that there was something going on here that might merit the attention of the CPC.
Mhm.
And so I contacted Mike Doucette and Jane Healy on the 19th of August, and I raised my hand and said, do these scope changes, do they trigger a renewed review, renewed consideration by the CPC? And there were three items. There was the pump house, there was the granite wall, and I also mentioned the omission or deletion of a concrete foundation to support that granite curb or bench, or that bench wall. Noting that it had originally been costed and had been presented as an exhibit to the CPC for our original funding approval, but it had been removed from the scope of the bid documentation. And I thought that was I don't believe it was an oversight. I believe it was a deliberate omission for some reason. And I feel that imperils the long-term stability of whatever is installed on the perimeter of the pond. Without a concrete foundation and freeze thaw, I think that things would be quickly misaligned, or there would be some subsidence. So on August 25th, I spoke to Mike Doucette on the phone, and he asked me, he said, well, he would forward it on to the city attorney. He would get an opinion. I think you've seen that letter. That was one of the documents that was, I think, attached today. But he also brought up the possibility of the Historical Commission writing a revised letter of support, indicating the areas where we are in disagreement, and pointing those out and why, and that at least we would have that as a document on file, regardless of whether we were able to redeliberate within the CPC or not. So, voila, that's what you have. You have the September 8th letter. I think it's pretty clear what I'm trying to say. I'm not changing any of our support for the general intent of completing the Frog Pond project, but I still strongly disagree with what has occurred in terms of those scope items. I feel that they are substantial changes to the landscape, and I wanted to take one last bite of the apple with the rest of you, so that we could get a document in the file. And that's basically my motivation. My only motivation is to make sure that the NHC has clearly stated its point of view on the matter for the record. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So I would sum that up in one sentence as we were shown a project. We wrote a letter of support for it. At some time after that, there were some changes made, so we just want to see, given that situation, do we want to make any changes to our letter, basically. One quick comment I'll make. You mentioned the delegated design. I know at the planning board meeting, Kim Turner addressed that. Did you happen to hear that, Joe?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, but it sounds like were you not convinced?
No, no, I was not. I feel that a project delivered for bid by the city, we owe it to our taxpayers and the people who contribute to the CPC funds to produce a full and complete and competent set of bidding documents.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. But that's my feeling.
Yeah.
I believe that we will pay a premium to have a contractor design our pump house for us.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's again, that's not really strictly part of our purview. And one other thing, they didn't the construction of the structure was brought to us not, quote, for a variance, to use your term, I think is what you said. That was a downtown overlay district. They needed a special permit to construct anything because it's within the boundaries of the DOD.
Excuse me, special permit. That's right.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Right. So we had a hearing on our role in the process that's defined in the ordinance for the downtown overlay district, is that the commission presents the planning board, who they're the granting authority in this case, with a historical report, which is what we did. And that was the report that Joe made reference to, where we said, hey, you want to build a structure, but that's not historically appropriate. And as he said, if you do, we'd like to check it out. All right. So thank you very much for that, Joe. I know for myself personally, I haven't even had a chance to really review the documents that Kim Turner sent, but I definitely do. I may even try to meet with her to depending on what that review turns up, because I think we're all in agreement that the Frog Pond is a wonderful city asset. When everyone wants to see it cleaned up, but we don't want to do that at the expense of it's, as a certain wicked witch once said, these things must be done delicately, so, to avoid damaging a historic well, the wonderful intent. And Joe, I just sent you this morning. I didn't send this to everyone. I was going through some old email looking for something totally different, and I came across an email from the Museum of Old Newbury. That's the Cushing House Museum, and it had a huge article with lots of great photos and drawings of Frog Pond, the Mall, the Charles Elliott, pictures of him and the design. It was just a wealth of information. I didn't even have time to read the whole thing. It was really, really extensive. And it starts out by saying what I think they used the term jewel, what a jewel it is for the city. And so, there are certain things that, certain liberties I think can be taken, but I don't know, Frog Pond's pretty special to not
Absolutely.
just us. Right.
And may I add one more point?
Sure. Sure.
I have to admit that I never felt very comfortable with providing the initial support in 2022 for the granite curb. And I think I looked more than I should have for a rationale. And I spent 2 hours in the Museum of Old Newbury. And I looked through all the correspondence and all the drawings that were on file. And I did find correspondence regarding a request by the I forget what they're called. It was the Society for the Frog Pond improvement. It was the Frog Pond Improvement Society or some such. But
Yeah.
it was a group of dignitaries from the city who were tasked with doing something about the decline of the pond, and they were interested in a granite border of some type. And then it came up again under Arthur Shirtcliffe in the 1930s, and I believe he even documented it in a drawing. I recall a drawing where there was a profile of a curb, but it was not implemented, and I don't know why, presumably for money reasons. So I said, well, because there's been historical interest in it, I said it could be approved because it was something per the secretary's, and I think I documented here, the Secretary of the Interior standards that says it was a missing feature. They actually allow for something like that. Now, I don't know if I properly interpreted that language or not, but it says a new feature on a site when the historic feature is completely missing. And I justified it using that language. So I feel that I have done actually a good bit to try to compromise. And I feel that the change of scope to a granite bench wall on the entire perimeter of the pond, effectively turning it into a basin, is an abuse of that goodwill that I showed initially. So, so I feel, I won't hide that some of that is personal. I feel that I made a really significant effort to understand what was being proposed and to somehow help justify it. And then it's used, I think, against us in some way. The last thing I'd like to say is that we are here to not compromise, actually. We are here to actually, to say what we really feel about in our knowledge of the historical landscape, in this case. Usually it's buildings and structures, but we're here to protect the patrimony that we have. We shouldn't be here thinking that we have to compromise because of somebody else's opinion, whether that's the planning boards or the city's legal help. We have other criterias, and we get to because we are the historical commission. We get to interpret those sources. So like I say, this is the last bite of the apple possibly on this. I don't know where this will go, but I think we as a historical commission can be very clear at this point in time what we think about what is occurring here. So all right. Thank you.
And by the way, I agree with your characterization of our role, and I've, it's been now going on, I don't know, somewhere in the vicinity of 4 years I've been on this board, and it's really taken me a while to feel more or less comfortable with that balance of, and landscape is a special case too, because, they are so, sometimes subject to natural changes, let alone man-made changes. But anyway, the way I would put what you were expressing, Joe, is that we're here to point the way or shine a light on what is historically appropriate and historically correct. Now, if the planning board or the ZBA as their permit granting authorities, if they want to, they take into consideration other things like, well, many things, everything from site drainage to power lines to whatever. So they're not beholden strictly to follow our advice, but that doesn't mean, I agree with you, Joe, that doesn't mean we need to water down our advice. If anything, it means that we should, if we feel that the correct interpretation of the guidance from the Secretary of the Interior and everything is X, then we should state that and say why. And I think if we can, and anything we put out, and I think we've been doing a reasonably good job of that, when we offer an opinion, especially if we think it's going to be in any way controversial, we'll explain, why we feel that way, or what it is about the standards that make that the way to go, etc. So yeah, I think So thank you for your comments, Joe. The only other thing I'll say is that I personally would like to, I don't think we need a vote to continue or anything like that, so much as just if, if anyone's in dire disagreement with picking this back up a little later after we've had time to adjust it, you can speak now. And I see a hand went up. Mark, did you want to make a comment?
Yes, indeed. First of all, I want to commend Joe for all the work he did in trying to put this letter together. However, it seems to me from what I've heard and what I've read about this project that this is not a project that's going smoothly, and that even if we make our voices heard about how we feel about it, it may be premature and not much is really going to happen for a good while. So I'm not sure this letter at this point is unfortunately going to be terribly relevant.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pessimistic.
Okay. In the sense that, do you mean that just in the sense of things are delayed because I know they didn't get any bids and so forth, or do you think there are additional problems beyond that?
Beyond that.
I see. Okay. All right. Well, I guess time will tell, but and consistent with what I just said a moment ago, we'll just we'll state our position as clearly as we can and why it is, and what the city will do is what the city will do, I guess, and we'll have to wait and find out. But I hope that they we can convince them, and I think a lot of members of the public will probably come forward and if with opinions about any plans to affect the frog pond, because I know people really hold that thing dear. Okay, shall we move on? I did have one other update from the chair. Actually, I didn't get to updates from the chair, did I? We're talking about the review of the frog pond thing. So updates from the chair. Next meeting, September 28th, had to be canceled because of a commitment on the part of the planning staff. That's Caitlin, Andy, and so on. So our next meeting will be October 12th. So if you want to adjust your calendars, you can make a note of that. I think, Joey, the beginning, I'm blanking on whether the meeting had officially started or not. In brief, the city accidentally didn't notice that Joe Morgan's commission, membership, or was in the historical commission technically expired, like, I don't know, April or something. But apparently they realized it recently, and so those wheels have been set in motion. So you may have heard Joe, if it was after the meeting started, he was asking about, okay, what happens next? So anyway, we checked the ordinances, or Caitlin checked. He is not only able, it sounds like he should continue on the board until someone else comes into that chair or whatever. So Joe, I will talk to the mayor's administrator, if not the mayor himself, and let them know that you would like to continue on the board. And you certainly have my gratitude that you are willing to do that, because you've really been a very helpful member. Oh, and I should have mentioned also, one of the reasons Joe is very involved with this, the CPC, that the board that administers community preservation funds, has statutorily, they've got a representative from the historical commission sits on that committee, and that member is Joe Morgan. So he was very much involved in this whole frog pond thing right from the beginning, as far as from the CPC point of view. Anyway, so Joe, I will get back to you. Today's Thursday. If they can give me an answer tomorrow, I can get back to you tomorrow. If not, it'll be sometime next week. But I don't. At this point, you can wait to hear. You'll probably hear either back from me, or you might hear directly from the mayor's administrator. I'm not sure if they're going to ask for some kind of formal letter that you want to, re-up or not. It might.
Why can I ask you, Chair?
Sure.
I'm not the first one to probably serve 2 terms on the commission. What's the
By
normal
no means.
process? Is
I
there anyone
can-
else
can tell
there
you-
that could chime in and might have personal experience with it?
Yeah, Joe, it's
Yeah.
very easy. The mayor's office will contact you. You'll go talk to the mayor briefly,
Okay,
justify your life, and then you can move on. It's
Clarity. Thank you
easy.
so
And
much,
if you
Mark.
have not been sworn in by Richard Jones, the clerk of the city, he will swear you in. You'll promise to do everything by the book, and he'll give you a little piece of paper justifying your presence on the commission.
Yeah, Mark,
Yeah,
I'm
thank
trying
you.
to-
And,
Some
and
of this-
I'd like to clarify one thing.
Sure.
I think we should
Yeah.
not confuse board and commission. We are not a board,
Okay.
we are a commission.
Okay.
Okay, and Lisa Mead keeps calling us a board. That's not right. And unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, you also do that. So
Yes, I do.
it's really important that we stay on track there for the terminology.
Okay, I guess I was, I acknowledge that I've been using those terms. Just commission has so many syllables, but yeah, I should use the correct term.
Joe,
But
I
thank you,
had in
Mark.
addition,
That's very clear.
Joe, I did my second renewal, my first renewal remotely, and I feel like I had like a brief interview with the city council member for my district, which is Heather Chan. So
Mhm.
that might be an additional thing, but it wasn't. It was really rubber stamp, I felt, type of thing.
Yeah.
So, like,
And
you want to continue. This is what you can add. That's very clear. And that was about it.
Okay, that sounds
Does
good.
anyone remember, who had a renewal? Did you get sworn in by the clerk again? I can't remember if they
Yes, I
re-swore.
got two papers.
Okay.
I got a paper, but I didn't get sworn in the second time because we're still
It was
remote.
COVID.
So,
Yeah,
With
middle
COVID.
of COVID, right? Okay.
yeah.
All right.
All right, thank you. And I'm gonna go back, Mark, and see exactly what the difference is between a commission and a board, but so my apologies for merging those. And that's it from the chair. The only things left, there are minutes from the 27th of July. So I didn't take a look at who was here or not. I know obviously, Alan, you were not. So first of all, hopefully you had a chance to look at those. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from July 27th?
I make
I'll
the
make
motion to approve the minutes. Mark Sendron.
Okay, Mark,
And I'll second those.
that was
Yes, Mark. Mark and
begins with, begins with an A. Not Alan. Why am
Andrew?
I blank? Andrew,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. But my brain was just not functioning there for a minute. All right,
Yes,
so the motion is to approve the minutes from, so can you please self-select as to if you were not here on that date, abstain, because I can't remember exactly who was here or not. And I didn't have a chance to look it up. Mr. Bernhardt, were you here?
yes, I think I
Okay.
was.
And you approved the minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
Was I?
Biff, I think you were here, right? Oh, there it is.
Yes.
Thank you.
and yes, I approve.
Okay, thank you. Mark Syndrome.
Yes.
You.
I'm on the list.
Yeah, okay, boy, looks like we had good attendance. And you're a yes, right?
Yes.
Okay. How about Mr. Fay, you're abstained. You were not there.
I
That's
was,
what-
I was there, Glenn.
Christopher, no, I'm talking about Christopher Fay. Christopher Fay.
Yes, I was not present, so I abstained.
All right. Joe Morgan.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Ed Neumer, you were there, right?
Yes,
And do you approve the minutes?
yes.
Okay, and I do as well. So that makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 affirmative votes. So those minutes are approved. And the only thing left is a vote to adjourn this meeting unless anyone has anything urgent they would like to add. If not, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Move to adjourn, Joe Morgan.
Okay.
Second, Mark Sendron.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Second, okay, Mr. Bernhardt.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Biff Baus.
Yes.
Okay, Mark Syndrome. Didn't hear anything from Mark.
Yes,
Oh, okay, there you go. Christopher Fay,
Yes.
thank you. Joe Morgan,
Yes.
thank you. Ed Neumer,
Yes.
okay. And the chair is affirmative. And Alan, thanks very much for attending. It's Al, I'm referring to Alan Marquis. He's our newest alternate member, and hope you enjoyed your first meeting, and wish everyone a good night, and see you in I don't know, a few weeks in
Have a good night,
October.
guys. Thank you.
All right. Good
Okay,
night.
Thank you very
everybody.
much. Thank you, Chair.
Stay dry.
Thank you,
Good night.
Joe. Thanks for everything.
Take care, folks.
Good night.